Just before we get started with this video where I show you how to multi-sample an old Korg Poly 61, I just thought I'd let you know that partway through making this film I noticed that Piano Book have made their own series of videos showing you how to multi-sample your instruments. They're bound to be much more professional than this, so if you want to check out their stuff on YouTube for how to do this properly, then go and do it. In the meantime, hi everyone, something a little bit different today. This is my Korg Poly 61. I'm going to be multi-sampling it and creating a Kontakt instrument and then uploading that to Piano Book. What's Piano Book? Piano Books is like online library community where people sample their instruments, predominantly pianos, but also lots of other things, so stringed instruments or xylophones or anything they find, like toy pianos, anything they might find that's interesting, and they multi-sample them, upload them, and then share these libraries for people to use. And I thought I would give something back because I've been using quite a few of their samples recently, just to play with. They're really nice, quite inspiring actually. I don't have any acoustic instruments here, or not many really, that I could use, so I thought I would take my vintage Poly 61, which is really on its last legs. If anyone out there owns a Poly 61, you'll probably understand where I'm at, because I've had this thing open and repaired and done so many things to it to keep it going. I have, if I just quickly move the camera slightly, I have down this end added a few modifications. So over here I've added a Midi in, just simply channel 1, and plays the keyboard, which is great because the keyboard is ropey at best. And I've also added a couple of things in terms of controlling the filter. So I've got a resonance control here. Not the most extreme resonance you've ever heard on a synth, but I've also got a slightly quirky filter control as well. So I thought I'd multi-sample this, and just to add a little bit of interest to things, I thought that what I would do, instead of just directly multi-sampling it in, I thought I'd use one of these. So I've dusted off a 15-year-old cassette deck. One of the it's like a twin cassette deck. One of them doesn't work, and the fast forward and rewind don't work. So I've been doing the old pencil trick with this. And I'm going to sample each note. Well, I'm going to sample 4 notes per octave. I've decided on C and C sharp, C, D sharp, F sharp and A. And then what I'll do is I'll group the semitone above and below each one of those, so we're not using a sample to spread too high or too low across the keyboard. And then what I'm going to do also is going to do 3 round robins for each key. So there will be 3 key strikes, and I'm going to hold nice and long, so it'll be if people want to use this and add a long release to their soft sampler, they can. And I'll do 3 because each voice within this Poly 61 has a small calibration, or a couple of calibration diodes inside, and they've been drifting, and I've calibrated them a couple of times, but I can never quite get them in tune. So each time I play a note, there will be a slightly different character to it. So some are quieter, some are slightly brighter. It's very subtle. You probably hear it more when you're in the room with the synth, but it really adds that character. So I'm going to do that, and let's see how we go. Okay, so this is my little MIDI sequence I've got running in. This is Performer Lite. What I've got, as you can see, is 3 long notes per note that I want to record, all the way up 5 octaves, and that's simply triggering the notes using the Midi in of the Poly 61 that I added. And then this is just going to record each one of those notes as it goes. So I'm just going to set it playing and then press record. Okay, so this is my really old cassette deck, which has been at the back of my cupboard for about, I don't think it's been switched on for about 15 years. This is the cassette I'm going to record to, this one here. And I have just, because the rewind and fast forward mechanism isn't working particularly well, I've just been using my trusty old biro to rewind it. This cassette deck, I've just accidentally jammed a cassette in there. I think, yeah, never mind. Okay, so let's send a note through. Let's just arm this for record. We'll send a note from my Poly 61. Okay, that's nice and strong. Don't want too high, because you can clip. Obviously you get distortion with tape, which is lovely, but it's not the effect I'm going for. If I play a chord that's quite high, also if we're adding 6 or 7 of these quite loud notes together in a soft sampler, are we then going to clip? I don't know. So I'm just going to take the recording level just down a touch. Okay, I probably wouldn't want to go any higher than that. Okay, off we go. It was at this point that the relatively simple process took a bit of a turn for the worse. The twin cassette deck, which I established was now 30 years old, decided to show its true age. One of the cassette decks would only play in reverse. Neither of them would fast forward or rewind. The cassette deck, which I could play forwards on and decided to record to, tape B on the right, started recording and then would drop out. So I decided to open the cassette deck up and have a look to see if there was anything going on with it. Fortunately, I managed to get it working long enough to record 16 minutes worth of samples, and I finally got them to tape. So this is my cassette with all my samples on, and I'm just going to pop it in my cassette deck and then record those straight into my DAW. Disaster. Okay, so this is probably the end of the project. Because the second cassette deck now has given up the ghost. There's a small rubber band in there that I think is part of the drive mechanism, and that's broken. So, which is a shame because I've just completed recording all the samples on the cassette, which is now jammed in here. I'll have to have a think what I can do. So my cassette deck has finally died. The cassette deck won't play, rewind, fast forward. I think it needs to go to the dump. Also, it won't eject to give me my tape back. It's like it's holding these sounds in its deathly grip from beyond the grave. So I had to take it apart, dismantle it, and retrieve my cassette. Unfortunately, I've not been able to get those sounds back into my computer. So I thought this might be the end of the story. But like every tale, there's always a last hope. There's always a hero that rides to the rescue at the last moment. And the hero in this story is the Onde Magnetique. What's an Onde Magnetique, I hear you say? Well, the Onde Magnetique is a cassette-based synthesizer created by a guy called Scott Campbell in America, and he makes a few of these every year, and I was lucky enough to get my hands on one, and I love it. But the important thing for this story is one component of the Onde Magnetique is a modified Walkman. And now if I can just use this to get my sounds into my DAW, I might be able to carry on and complete my task. Yes, success, hooray! These are my notes. Here we are, lovely. The interesting thing to see is the variation, so I've had to keep an eye on the levels, obviously the levels from the oscillators and also the tape. Keep an eye on the pitch. You can see the variation there. Some spikes and pops all over the place. And also, just look at the amount of noise between those notes. I'm going to have to clear this up. So I've got the boring job now of trimming these, and yeah, we'll come back with a full set of samples, hopefully. Okay, so I've got my WAVs over here, and they're all trimmed nicely, and they're all correctly named, which is probably the first time I've ever done that. They're quite noisy, a lot of them have got character, so let's have a listen to one or two now. And I'm going to open up my instance of Kontakt over here. I'll create a new instrument. I'm going to close some of these windows, give me a bit of space. And then open the mapping editor. This is where I'm going to drop my files. And I'm just going to move my files across into here so they're in the right place. Make sure the sample root note set to the correct note so it's not out of tune. Also, just check the levels, make sure everything's nice and tidy. Okay, so in Kontakt I've made 3 instruments from my Cassette Poly 61 sounds. The first one is original, and if we have a look at that, you can see I've got 3 groups, so each one of these represents a round robin. If anyone knows how to rename the groups, please let me know. Down here I've just got a little low pass filter, which you can open with using Midi CC1, that's the mod wheel. And this is the one that's really as close to the original sounds as I can make. So if we look at the envelope down the bottom, bear with me a second, my screen's a bit small. If we look at the envelope down here, there's only a touch of release and a touch of a slow attack on it. So that's really as close to the organ sounds possible, which is why I've named it original. So let's have a listen to how it sounds. They've got a real raspy quality. They sound a bit like a mellotron or something. I've used the filter to help cut some of that high noise out. The next one I've created is called Soft and Long. It's pretty much the same setup, so we've got 3 round robins, 3 groups, each with all our samples laid out here, and we just close the mapping editor, give us some room. You can see we've got the low pass filter again. Again, it's MIDI control CC, the mod wheel, so you press it, you can open the filter using the mod wheel. But the main difference really is down at the bottom you can see the envelope it's got a longer release, and so it should give more of a sort of softer, longer tone to it. Sounds a bit like this. The last one I've created is called Expressive, and essentially it's the same setup, 3 round robins. The main difference is the filter is a little bit more closed, but I've got more modulators. So we've got CC1, we're using velocity and a bit of aftertouch as well, so any of those will increase the filter a little bit. I've added a little bit of convoluted reverb here, just to give it a bit of character. And the other thing is, if we just close all these windows, and that one, the mapping editor, if we scroll down to the bottom, I've added some dynamics to the envelope with velocity. So in effect, the harder you play, the shorter the attack and the shorter the release. The softer you play, the longer attack, the longer release. And also obviously the softer you play, the lower the filter cutoff. So it sounds like this. So those are my 3 instruments. I'm going to upload them to Piano Book if they'll have them, and thanks for joining me on this journey to create this instrument, the Cassette Poly 61. I'm hoping to do some more in the future. It's quite time consuming, but I do have a couple of instruments here, including perhaps the Onde Magnetique, and that I might make some samples out of. But until then, if you want to use these samples, please do. I hope you enjoy them. Hope you can use them creatively, get some fun out of them. Thanks very much for joining me. Cheers, bye.